Bondrewd is best baby. One of my favorite villains I've seen in quite some time, and the type that made me think about what makes villains truly great in general. Obviously, there are countless ways you could make a villain engaging, but with Bondrewd, I've got 3 major points to discuss. Let's do it. In my opinion, the best villains generally serve as more than just a physical obstacle to the protagonist. They serve as an ideological one, as a force that pokes holes in their worldviews and perspectives. This is one way to make your protagonist feel small, by having the villain reveal the protagonist's naivete or some other major flaw. With Bondrewd, this element shines through with Rig. See, Rig is the most heroic of the main group, with a desire to make things right, protect his friends, and even avenge their loss. However, when he first meets one of Bondrewd's forces, he's left unable to properly do anything. Why? Well, because this guy is busy taking care of an infestation that could threaten many lives, and which Rig is entirely unequipped to deal with. Here, Rig's ideals are shown to be flimsy in the face of Bondrewd's scientific advancement and commitment, even if it means burning up something beautiful. Unlike our protagonists, at least Bondrewd is doing something. However, there are other ways to use your villain to make your protagonist feel small. Quite obviously, the villain could have deeply wronged one of them, which is precisely what happens with Nanachi. See, in conducting his experiments, Bondrewd transformed Nanachi's best friend Miti into this thing, which existed in a tortured state until Nanachi could finally find a way to kill it. In most cases, this would already be enough of a personal connection, enough of a way to make the protagonist feel small, but Bondrewd takes this a step further, because Bondrewd doesn't hold any ill will toward Nanachi. In fact, he seems quite fond of her, and he applauds her when she succeeds in freeing her friend from this terrible form. This communicates something key. Nanachi is so below Bondrewd, so insignificant to him, that her quest has nothing to do with him. What I mean is that he's already moved past this incident, merely viewing it as a stepping stone in his path of scientific discovery. So why would he care to get involved with Nanachi's suffering? Why would he care to hurt her more or help relieve her pain? There's nothing in it for him. So he allowed their paths to diverge, until Nanachi stumbled into his home again. She must pose no threat to him too, considering that he wants her to join him again, regardless of any anger she feels toward him. Actually, he finds her words of hatred cute, a term of endearment that carries with it another, crueler meaning in this context. To be cute is to be non-threatening. Again, Bondrewd doesn't worry about her because he doesn't feel he needs to, and that definitely makes this protagonist feel small. Now, this isn't all that uncommon. However, in most cases I'm aware of, this is portrayed as the flaw for the villain. Maybe even their fatal flaw. You know, pride cometh before the fall, all that jazz, and there's nothing wrong with that. But man, is it fun to twist that theme here, where no, Bondrewd really is just that much more powerful than a bunch of kids. They can't do much to him. I mean, take this scene. Here the protagonists come up with this pretty brilliant plan to kill Bondrewd. They lure him into this creature's nest, awaken it, then they force Bondrewd deep into the water and rapidly pull him up. Given how the abyss works, that means that Bondrewd's body practically explodes due to the curse. So yeah, they beat him. Except no, they didn't. One of Bondrewd's lackeys just waltzes on over, picks up the mask, places it on his head, and bam! Bondrewd is in a new body. And it's worse than it initially seems, since that mask isn't even necessary to his transference. If he dies, he's simply able to move over to another body using a special relic he has. Later, when the protagonists battle Bondrewd again, they manage to defeat him and all his lackeys in the surrounding area. However, even then, they have a choice. They can either go off on a journey to destroy every one of his bodies, or they can move on with their own quest. Bondrewd is so powerful that he can't merely be a footnote in their story. If they want to defeat him, they would possibly need to forsake their own goals and aspirations to do so. In the end, they just let him live, and he lets them go, because they understand that they likely don't have the time or resources to defeat him. In this way, Bondrewd makes the protagonist feel small because they really are small. The power of love. You've seen it. I've seen it. Protagonists worldwide have sure as heck seen it. Nothing wrong with it either. But like any commonly used idea, it can grow a bit tiresome and cliched. But what if you take this idea and apply it to the villain instead? What if they take this concept and twist it in an unexpected way? And you guessed it, that's exactly what Bondrewd does. See, he creates a bond with his daughter Preshka. He raises her, heals her multiple times when she's injured, gives her what she wants, and encourages her to develop friendships. In the end, though, it's all for the purpose of sacrificing her to become blessed, as he says. So surely Preshka views this sacrifice as a betrayal. Nah, she doesn't. She couldn't for this to work. She so thoroughly trusts her dad that she doesn't really seem to mind that she's being transformed into this little packet that he's just gonna use. It serves to make the villain even more wild and disturbing than he'd otherwise be, because now we're taking such a familiar concept and flipping it on its head. After all, I think many would claim that unconditional love for your family is good, but what if this is what unconditional love could look like? Then maybe not so much. Of course, we might then get into debates about what love is and so on and so forth, but what matters here is that this villain and the victim both view this as love, and the heroes have to contend with that. Naturally, this could be done with loads of other themes, and it's a really cool way to give your villain some extra oomph. It's just the novelty of seeing a villain with the power of love on their side is pretty interesting. I feel like many people have grown tired of gray villains, or more specifically, those who reminisce on their actions and find redemption. Obviously, there's nothing inherently wrong with that character arc, but it's true that sometimes I just want a villain who I can love to hate. But does that mean they have to be some oversimplified cardboard cutout? Of course not. You can have a villain with complexity who doesn't get redemption, and Bondrewd serves as a wonderful example of that. See, to me, the most simple way to go with Bondrewd would be that he just thinks nothing of these kids. He sacrifices them in experiments, and that's that. Sure, but that just isn't the case. He seems to treat these children with kindness right up until the moment he hurts them, and then he remembers all their names and who they were. However, he never goes on about how he feels guilty for what he's done. We never have a flashback moment where the audience is meant to go, "Oh wow, Bondrewd's bad, but I sure feel sorry for him." No way, at least not for me. In fact, this layer of complexity in my mind only makes him creepier, because it's almost easier for me to understand some guy who has so thoroughly lost his mind or morals that he just doesn't think anything about these people anymore. But the idea that in his own weird way, he seems to care for these kids, and he still does this? Yeah, that's a whole lot weirder, and I like it. However, there are moments where the audience could potentially start to view him in a more tragic light. After all, we learn that there are these white whistles. All you need to know for the sake of this is that they sure are important and people want them. However, they can only be used if someone who really cares for you dies, and in that process, leaves one behind. But Bondrewd didn't get it from anyone else. No, he sacrificed himself, and then he did this whole body jumping thing. And later, we learn that people who body jump are known to lose their minds. One reading of this could definitely be that Bondrewd, at the time, was so unwilling to sacrifice anyone that he instead chose to start body jumping and sacrificed himself. In the end, though, he so thoroughly lost his mind that he also lost those morals. So now this is starting to sound like I'm supposed to feel sorry for him. But wait a minute. That's just one reading. After all, it's also possible that no one cared about him enough to form a whistle he could use, and that this was his only recourse at that time. Maybe that was because he was so cruel. More than that, it could be that he was simply curious to see if he could do this. The important part here is that we don't get the details. Any information that could lead to him feeling more tragic isn't the focus. It's just flavor, a way to add some complexity and mystery. This way he can feel more multifaceted and developed without that being the main point. At the end of the day, he's still a monster. He's still the villain. And I love that we get these extra layers without taking away from how hateable and horrifying he is. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel. I'm putting out a new video every day this month, so you can get notified about that as soon as possible. Either way, thanks again, and I hope you have an awesome day. Bye-bye for now.